Hello, Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is part 4 of my June Stamp Set of the Month series featuring the Rawrsome stamp set by Fawn. Today's card might be my favorite. It is inspired by my daughter's sweatshirt. It's the cutest sweatshirt. She gets compliments on it every time she wears it, and I knew that I had to make a card inspired by it. So you can see it here, her wearing it. It's so cute. I love it. And also today we're going to be talking about using colored pencils on white cardstock versus colored cardstock. I'm going to be using the Arteza Expert 48 pack colored pencils. So we'll talk about the differences there, and then also if you watch my series on Stamp Set of the Month, you know that today I am giving away the card that I made in last week's video. So everyone who commented on last week's video will be entered into a drawing to win this card right here. So cute. And I will randomly draw out a name and the winner will flash across the screen right now. Congratulations. I will be in contact with you to get your mailing address and get this card shipped out to you right away. Thank you so much for coming back for another video, and I think we should go ahead and start coloring, stamping, making cute things. Here we go. All right, let's take a look at the Arteza Expert pencils in a 48 pack. They also come in a 72 pack. These pencils come sharpened, but the tips are not exactly pointy sharp, so I recommend sharpening them before you use them. These are the two pieces of paper I'm going to be using, whipped cream cardstock from Fun Stamper's Journey and bubblegum cardstock. And we're going to talk about the differences between coloring on these and just kind of see how these Arteza pencils color. I'm stamping 3 different images to put on the front of my card on this white paper, and then we'll go ahead and start coloring them. So the cute little egg, love that. All right, so I like to heat set this VersaFine Onyx black ink before I start coloring with it. It is a thicker ink, so you kind of need that. And here I'm showing you the pencils I use, so you can go back and freeze frame that if you want and check it out. This is emerald green that I'm coloring with first. I'm just going around the edge, coloring lightly in small circles. This is sped up a little bit just so we can fit it all in a timely manner. But when you're coloring with colored pencils, the idea is to build up the layers of colors. If you come in with a heavy hand and you draw a really dark line or color in a really dark line, you're going to fill up the tooth of the paper and you will not be able to blend that out anymore. So once you have that shiny thick pencil there, you're done blending. And I want to blend this. So I'm coming in with a lighter color here and coloring over the top and bringing the color farther out as I am coloring again in the small circles. And here I am again bringing back that darker emerald color and adding in some darker shadows. So again, like I said, when coloring colored pencils, it's about building up the layers. And so you just have to kind of, like you do with Copics, start with your dark, add your light, or however you like to color with Copics. And that is kind of the idea you want to do with the colored pencils, a really light hand, because then you can always add more color. But if you fill the tooth of this paper, you will never be able to add in any more color. So I'm just repeating all these steps, going between the dark and the light so that I can get the look that I want. Get them as dark as I want or as light. And then the final step for this is to bring in a blending stump. You can use this just as it is. It's like a rolled up paper that's really tight and has a sharp point. Here you can see how it burnishes the color into the paper, and then it softens out those pencil lines and kind of spreads out the color, evens it out. I'm going to add some pink to this little dinosaur with 2 different colors of pink pencil, and then I'm going to do the same with the egg and the hat as well. So I'm just coloring with the darker, bringing in the light. I added some polka dots, and then burnishing that color into the paper with the blending stump. Now you can use a product called Gamsol, which I am going to show on the colored paper. Here's how you sharpen your blending stump if it gets, if you need to change colors or if it gets too saturated with color, there's a sanding stick you can use. I'm going to go ahead and die cut these, and we'll set those aside and move on to coloring on the colored paper. So here I'm creating my background using the little baby dinosaur that matches the one I just colored, and this is the inspiration piece from the sweatshirt. So I'm just going to randomly stamp these, turning the dinosaur each time, filling up the paper, and then I came back with that open flower image and filled in the open spaces. Now I'm using the same colors I used before, but I'm only using the darkest green and the lightest green. And here I'm just coloring in the entire dinosaur. Colored cardstock is not as smooth as white cardstock. So I'm doing the thing where I'm coloring one way and then I'm going to color the other way, kind of like against the grain and then with the grain, so side to side, then up and down, kind of filling in that whole entire dinosaur with paper. I mean, with color. Now here I brought in the Gamsol and I just dipped the tip of my blending stump into that, and then I dabbed it off on a piece of paper towel, and that's going to help sop that up. You don't want your blending stump to be really saturated. And again, you can clean that off and dip it again to continue blending with it. And as I scrape this across this sandpaper stick, I'm turning it as I scrape down, and that helps sharpen it a little bit. And you can see here, dip it again, and then I dab it off on my paper towel so it's not too much. And then I can continue coloring and blending. Also, I highly recommend whenever you're coloring with colored pencils, no matter what paper, you really want to make sure you have a sharp pencil. So I like to use this sharpener here, and I like to turn the sharpener instead of turning the pencil. And I think you'll find you get really good results with that. So just remember when coloring on colored cardstock that it is not a smooth surface. So you can't expect to get the same results with blending as you do on white cardstock. So here I'm creating a background. I was able to just blend that colored pencil out using the Gamsol, so it just looks like one solid green dinosaur. So that is the main difference, is the surface of the paper. You're not going to get the same exact look on colored cardstock. So here I'm just gluing that onto a mat of black cardstock, which I cut out the center with a rectangle die, so I didn't waste that paper. I covered it with some foam adhesive, and now I'm die cutting a scalloped frame with a Lawn Fawn stitched frame die set. And I'm going to use the inside piece. You can also use that outside piece, save that and use it for something else. And that's just going to help kind of calm down the background so your eye will focus on that center piece that I'm going to put on. I die cut a white circle that my dinosaur is going to sit on, and I'm splattering it with bubblegum sparkle silk. I guess it's just bubblegum silk, but it has a sparkle to it. And I'm putting a ton on because I kind of wanted it to have that speckled egg look. And I love how this turned out. Super cool. All right, so now I'm going to make a strip for my sentiment. I did not have a green cardstock that I loved to match the color that I colored the dinosaur. So I brought in my Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink and just ink blended across this strip. It's a 1/2 inch strip to make my own. And of course I'm going to splatter it with water. I love Distress Oxide when the water hits it, and it gives it that kind of new shade or tint of the color. It's really cool. And I heat set that to dry it, and I really rubbed it with an anti-static tool so that I could stamp and emboss my saying, which says, "I hope your birthday is dynamite." So stamping that with my MISTI so I can ink it up 2 times with clear pigment ink. And then I'm going to heat emboss this with white powder. So I'll sprinkle on that powder, catch the excess in my coffee filter so I can pour it back in later. And then we'll go ahead and heat that up to melt the powder with an embossing gun. Now I like to make sure my gun is nice and hot until, ow, it hurts my hand. Then I know it's ready to just melt that powder. And having a hot gun helps it not blow off the powder, and it helps it so that your paper does not warp as much. So I'm tucking this circle behind the sentiment, and that's why I cut off the bottom of it. I didn't want it to poke out below the sentiment strip. and I just trimmed off the excess there that I didn't need and cleaned the glue off of my desk. And now we're able to go ahead and mount all the little stamped images. So I'm putting this cracked egg. I feel like that's kind of like a dinosaur birthday present. Like my daughter's really into Hatchimals, these little toys that come out of eggs. So I had to add it, even though I didn't feel like it was a dinosaur that came from an egg, but it could be, it very well could be. So I put the little party hat on his head. So cute. I think it's a girl, just because it's inspired by my daughter's sweatshirt. So she loves this card. All right, so we'll put that on with foam squares. And then we're just about done with this. We're going to mount this onto a dark pink cardstock. This is Sweet Berry cardstock from Fun Stamper's Journey. All the cardstock I'm using today is from Fun Stamper's Journey. They have a great selection, lots of colors, and it's really good quality cardstock. So I love it. I use it on the regular. So I'm removing the foam strip off the back of the foam tape and then mounting that, and it's going to give me a nice sturdy card base. For the finishing touch, clear Wink of Stella. I'm going to put that on the egg to make it have some shimmer. Love that look. And then I decided anything else pink on these stamped images, I'm going to go ahead and shimmer. So his spots and his hat, and that finishes up the card. I was so tickled with how this turned out, inspired by the sweatshirt. The pink and green together is so much fun. And now we think we need to have a dinosaur birthday party. So we might just do that. So why not have a party favor? So let's make a party favor. I'm starting with this leaf print die, which if you have watched my Rawrsome card series this month, I've used this die in 2 different ways on 2 different cards. Today, I am cutting it from a piece of fun foam to make a stamp. So I'm running this through my die machine just as I would if I was cutting cardstock. And then I can use that to stamp on a piece of paper. So I decided why not cut it from pink, because I'm stamping it on pink. I don't know. But this is really thin fun foam, and I do feel like if I had a little bit sturdier piece, it might have done better. I'm going to put some temporary adhesive on the back of this just so I can stick it to the door of my Misty, or you could stick it to the back or to a clear block, and that would work really well too. So once that has some adhesive strategically placed, we'll put that in the Misty, and then I'm going to tape my paper in place. I can't use the magnets because I'm going to be stamping the entire front of this piece of paper. It's the same size as my homemade stamp there. So I'm going to move that out away from the edge a little bit just so I can place this a little bit better. I'll pick up that foam homemade stamp and then ink it up with bubblegum ink. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to use the Misty, because I'm using the same color ink as my cardstock. And that just means I want it to have a really saturated amount of color on it, and I can stamp it 2 times to get that look using my stamp positioning tool. So here I didn't get the best result like I thought I would, so I was glad I was able to go ahead and ink it again. And in retrospect, I feel like if I would have stuck this to a clear block and then take my paper and put it down on top of the stamp, I might have had much better results with it. But this was enough that I could use this small fry box that is part of my friend Chelsea Comer's line, the Inky Stamper, and it fit perfectly on my small fry box, which is the party favor to go with this card. So I'm folding on all the score lines that the die created for me, and I'm going to press this bottom piece in a little bit, which just helps it to stand up. Before I adhere it, I decided it needed some bubblegum silk as well for a little touch of sparkle. And then I'm going to use the die that comes with this die set, in the fry box set, and cut a little banner for a sentiment. And I needed it to be green too, so again, I am creating my own colored cardstock with the Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to spray it so it gets that distressed splatter look. It just goes with the feel of my dinosaur card, I feel. And then I'm going to dry it and emboss my sentiment, which says Rawrsome. Like, you don't need anything else. You could just tell people you're Rawrsome when you give them their party favor for the dinosaur party. Now I die cut the flowers from the same, this is the same die set, this small fry box, and I took the solid flower from the Rawrsome stamp set and I'm stamping that in the center with white ink. And I thought I would just stamp it, but then I was like, why not emboss it so it's nice and crisp and clear? So I dipped that into my white embossing powder that I already had out from the sentiment and embossed those centers, and I love how that turned out. So now we're going to put some double stick tape onto the flaps of this small fry box. I'm putting them on the back flaps, and then when I overlap the front flap, what I'm doing is just covering the tape, but you can bring that in more and make your box have a less wide of an opening. Just depends on what you want to put in it, but I feel with it kind of flared out at the top, it looks more like an actual French fry box. All right, we need a cute little dinosaur for the front of this box. So I'm stamping that baby one and then stamping a little party hat for him. This one's a little bit smaller than the hat on the dinosaur that will go on the front of the card. So now I'm coloring this just as I did with the big dinosaur. I'll glue on his party hat now that everything is die cut out and let that dry for a second while I die cut a circle with a stitched edge from vellum. So I'm repeating the things that I've done on the front of the card onto this box with a circle, with a pierced edge, using vellum. And when you have all that stuff out from making your card, it's pretty easy. So I popped that up onto my box, and now I'm going to add the flowers. And in the end here, I only ended up using the two smallest flowers. I didn't use the big one at all. But you know, sometimes it just works out different than you think once you start putting it all together. Then I'm going to glue this sentiment on at the top of the box here, and that pretty much finishes up the box. You could add some sparkle to this one with your Wink of Stella as well, and I just love having a matching box with my card, which is what I've been doing throughout this series. If you would like to win this card, I would love for you to leave a comment below, tell me what you think, and like this video. Everyone who comments will be entered to win this card, and I'll announce it on next Monday's video where I'm featuring a brand new stamp set of the month for the month of July. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. If you're interested, all the products I used are linked below, and happy stamping. Bye!